I have a man crush on this guy and his business. It is probably one of the most fascinating businesses in the country and one of the absolute best. You're good too, but I'm sorry. But I'm going to tell you about, I have to tell you about Al Molina's story. And I'll tell you about the kind of guy he is before he starts telling you about his story. 3 or 4 years ago, we were sitting having a drink with a friend of his at Centurion. And Al comes up and we're talking, we're chatting, and I look on his lapel, and I said, Al, I said, that is one of the nicest lapel pins for a corporation, for a business I've ever seen. And without hesitation, he takes it off and hands it to me. And I said, no, I don't want your pin. I just think it's really, really nice. Well done. He said, no, you must. So I wear it today in your honor and with great thanks. But that is a piece of him that we're going to tell a story about today. Steve Cook's going to tell you. I've been in this business 35 years, and a good friend, a mentor, told me in the very beginning, if you're honest and if you work hard and if you help other people, every time you need help in this industry will help you. People will be there to do the things that you need them to do. And the story we're going to tell today, after we do, but I'll tell you about his amazing story, and Steve about his amazing story, is a story about someone, Al, who helped someone, Steve, change his life in his business. And it's a little different format than we usually use for the cool store venues, but this is a special day, and I'm really excited to have both of these guys here and appreciate the time very much. So, Mr. Molina, would you please tell us the story about your beautiful store, where it comes from? Let's go through the slides. Ladies and gentlemen, you know...
You're behind the slides, though, Terry. That was you.
Al Molina, Steve Quick, tell us about this beautiful store.
Well, first of all, I'm a Cuban immigrant in this country. And I came at the age of 7. My parents lost everything in Cuba. We arrived in Chicago on January 1967 with simply the clothing on our back. We had absolutely nothing. We couldn't leave Cuba with even a bag. So we arrived in Chicago in 1967. My grandfather had an office at 840 North Michigan, right across from the water tower. And he had about a 125-man shop in Chicago. And so on March 2nd, 1967, 3 months after I arrived in the United States, he put me to work. And he took a penny. And for those of you who have been bench jewelers for many years, understand that a penny used to be made out of copper. And that copper had the same malleability as gold. And so to this day, I have a tremendous dislike for pennies. Because to me, it was about 4 hours worth of work with a number 2 graver. The first thing I learned to do was to raise beads. And Grandpa was from the old school. Grandpa believed that good character was built with iron and fire. So, you know, I never did anything right, and that kind of resilience has been very good for me. It's good to be able to overcome obstacles, because anytime you're in business, you're dealing with obstacles. The only people with no problems are dead people. So I worked for my grandfather from 67 to 76 on the bench. In 1976, my uncle, Robert Lewin, came to my mother and my father and my grandfather and said, let me have the boy, and I'm going to teach him the color stone and diamond business. And he wasn't any easier than my grandfather. He was a perfectionist as well. And I learned the business as far as some of the finest diamonds, finest color stones. This man would bring in cashmere sapphires, Burmese sapphires, Burmese rubies, 35 karat matching cat's eye crystal barrels. They were beautiful, honey lemon, color, just amazing stuff. So I worked for him from 76 to 80. He retired to Phoenix in 1980. And we went into partnership with a jeweler who, unfortunately, we lost about $7,000 with the diamonds in the first week of the partnership. So we decided that partnership was not going to work out. And I decided to open a store under my name, which was a family name that went back to 1634. Well, my uncle, who had retired to Phoenix,
All right.
found that anytime I found a location, he could just blow holes into it.
Yeah, you
And I
can
was
just
too
hang out
young
here.
and too naive to realize that he was obviously concerned about his retirement.
To bench
And
and just
he didn't
check
want
on
to be
them.
involved with me. If the boy,
Yeah, sit
that
tight.
being
Thanks,
me,
bud.
opened the store, he was going to have to be involved. So went into partnership with a jeweler, a very fine jeweler in Arizona. Had a great partnership from 1970 to, 1980 to 1987. First week in October of 1987, he embezzled money. And so I actually left the company with $1,500, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 2-week-old. I owed Valley National Bank $50,000, and I owed First Interstate $60,000. These were two banks that I had lines of credit. So I started the business on October 10th of 1987 with a negative $108,500 in capital, 9 days before the worst stock market crash since 1929. And I started the company by appointment only. I went out and bought $75,000 worth of furniture, 90 days, same as cash. I had a beautiful little office that I was able to put down $500 down payment, and I told the guy, look, I can't give you the last months or the first months, but I promise you that I'll do that in the next 30 days. And we did $1 million between October 10th of 1987 and December 31st of 1987. And that's how it all began. And since then, I mean, obviously our store is all about that ultimate experience. Every business, all of us, have 3 factors that we need to look at. One is location, people, and merchandise. So I set this little office. I had this beautiful little office, and no merchandise. So the way I started by appointment only allowed me to have someone call for something, and then I would actually start to source whatever they wanted. I mean, they called me on a Tuesday. I was not available until next Wednesday to give me enough time to bring in the gemstones. And of course, when they came in, I had 3 gems, 3 diamonds that were exactly what they wanted, exactly the quality, the color, and the price range. And so the rumor became that if you really wanted to see a lot of inventory, you had to go see Molina. Of course, I had no inventory. But it's all about, perception is reality. And that's how I built a company, one client at a time. I always believed that you have to deliver legendary service. Everyone that you meet is a potential client. My people have to make 20 phone calls a day. They have to give away 10 business cards a day. I give business cards to the guy that parks my car, the guy that cleans my table at the restaurant. I mean, everybody is a potential customer. One of my biggest clients came from Maine. So you never know. Acts of random kindness are a wonderful thing. When you treat a busboy like a billionaire, let me tell you, they remember. And you should never judge someone by their pocketbook. So it's all about going from a client to a customer to an advocate. But the ultimate thing is to create storytellers. And I don't consider anybody in my business.
Do something for me. Expand on that word advocate. The word advocate that you just used.
Sure.
Tell them what an advocate is. This is a really interesting piece.
Sure. An advocate is someone that actually takes ownership in what you're doing. I mean, advocates and mentors have a lot in common because a mentor will basically sing your praises. And if you say you're great, nobody listens because obviously we all think we're great. And if somebody else says that you're great, then things change. I mean, our business really is all about word of mouth. I don't consider anybody in this business a competitor. I'm an open book. You want to know what I do, what works, what doesn't work? I mean, I'm happy to talk about any of those things. So at the end of the day, I think what's important is to understand that, either we all become symbiotically together. I mean, we all have to share in our marketplaces. And, it's better to have someone. I've had jewelers that have sent people to me. And this doesn't happen rarely, this happens often because someone is looking for someone or something that they can't do. And I'm happy to do that. And by the way, I share the wealth. I have no problem when it comes to sharing the wealth when someone refers something.
That's great. How long has your store been in Phoenix?
We opened October 10th of 87.
We were looking at while you were talking. This is your board.
My board, yes.
You see clients there? You just have meetings there? Or?
We have dinners there. We have board meetings. We have charities that come and use that board meeting. I look at my store as a stage. So, you know, my grandfather, may he rest in peace, used to put a can of STP on all of his salesman's desk. STP stood for See the People. We're all in the people business. All of us. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, a doctor, a consultant, a mechanic, we're all in the people business. So it's all about people. So it's very important to have an ability for people to enjoy your store. And it truly is a stage. Every store that we have is actually set up to be able to have events. We have about 300 events a year.
Wow. It's a lot of events.
A lot of events. A lot of them, I mean, not all of them are in the store.
No, but that's...
And none of them, by the way, I must say that none of those events really are selling events. So, I mean, there's a huge difference between a charitable event that you're having, a cocktail party to raise money for a charity. And by the way, what happens is sales happen. It's not a sales event, but sales happen.
That's what... All right. Now, Steve, quick.
Yes.
Tell us about your store and your history, and then we'll talk about the magic moment that you took.
Actually, there are quite a few similarities between our two stories. I was struck by the negative $108,000, which I think is my good bank account. So we have 3 stores in Chicago. I started much like you, right out of high school. I was the gopher. I was the guy who did the watch batteries, did the watch bands, nobody else. Good?
Can you hear him fine? Okay. Hold that up just a tad. Thank you.
He's a quiet, powerful kind of man.
So I was the runner, I was the guy who did watch batteries, I was the guy who did everything else that other people didn't want to do, and that's how I started in the business. I was able to move on and work for some of the bigger names in Chicago, Levinson's Incorporated, Marshall Finkelstein, a lot of the older people will know who these people were. So again, like you, I went through the School of Hard Knocks. I learned some lessons that I had to forget, and I learned some lessons that were very valuable to me. But I opened my own store in 1986. And just never looked back. Grew very slowly, very much like Al. I had no merchandise to begin with. An interesting, very small story. Through a friend, Macy's department stores were doing state jewelry shows. So the friend said, I think you can do this. And he was thinking that because of my experience at Levinson's, where I had a $30 million inventory at my fingertips. Oh. I'm in a 300 square foot office, my first store. I've got maybe $20,000 worth of inventory. So again, if you know people and you're kind to people and they know who you are, it's amazing what they'll do for you. In 2 days, I went to everyone that I knew that had estate jewelry, and my 300 square feet was packed with probably $2 million worth of estate jewelry. So the Macy's buyers come in and they're looking at it and they're like, we just can't believe it. Who could possibly have all this inventory? It's unbelievable. None of it was mine.
Perception is reality.
So we signed a contract with Macy's department stores, and I started doing those estate jewelry shows. Again, I had to go back to my friends and I had to have them loan me the jewelry, which I then put into Macy's inventory, and it's really how I went from 300 square feet to our original store, which is in Lincoln Park. And then from there, we just grew organically, never having a large advertising budget, just trying to count on the kindness of our customers to tell their friends, and that's how we grew. And then up to this is the Cool store that we built. It opened November of last year, and November of 2012. And it's just going great. So unlike Al's magnificent one location, we have 3 very magnificent locations, 22 people, and it's going well. But much of our success I think I can directly point back to the experience that I had.
So, in what year was this epiphany?
You know, we just looked at we can't believe it, but it's 13 years ago.
And where were you?
It was the JCK show in Vegas, and
And Al was speaking in an education track.
I remember a huge room
That was the keynote.
packed
The
with
keynote.
tours, keynote. So this was a big deal, and everyone was there.
So Steve goes to the keynote address that Al's making at a show that we've all not gone to, we've all slept in, that we've all missed. And this is where this story takes an amazing turn. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. It changed your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell us what Al said that day and how you felt when you left the room.
Well, I think I can't wait to hear his recollection.
We're gonna
I'm writing it down.
I can't wait. My recollection is that I don't know how many people, let's say 500 people, it was just jammed, overflowing with people. And of course, all of us go to work every day. We've got our jewelry stores. We're successful. We're standing there, and honestly, by the end of it, we were all bruised. Everyone was quiet. Here's this guy, he's telling us and he's explaining to us in a kind way, but a very challenging way. And by the end of it, there were bruises. Some people had to be carried out. I mean, that's what it felt like to me. So we all thought we were doing customer service. We all thought that we were maybe going to someone's house to make a sales presentation. We all thought that we were doing everything that we could do. We were wrapping packages, we were doing everything. But I felt when I left that we were doing about 50%. Part of what Al was just saying before, the personal side of it was the part that we were missing. The social part of it was the part that we were missing. So what he said specifically was...
One second. Go ahead.
So let me ask you a question. You having trouble in your store? How are your numbers? So it's kind of a challenge, and everyone's numbers could be better. And he said, well, let me ask you. Do you have Altoids on your counter? Do you have a fully stocked refrigerator? If somebody comes into your store, can you invite them into your store and treat them like you would treat them if they were coming into your home? And I'm sure some of the people in the audience could answer yes, but the vast majority were like, not necessarily. So it was the personal service, it was the personal relationship part of it, it was the hospitality part of it that all of us that were working so hard to make the next sale were missing completely. So I came home and I bought a refrigerator first. And became a local hero at Costco. When you have 10 cases of booze at the cashier, you actually get applause in Costco. That happens to me all the time.
So let me interrupt a second. Al,
Sure.
do you remember that speech?
Yes, I do. It was the keynote for the Vegas show. There was 1,500 seats, and there are people standing on both lines and 2 or 3 lines deep on the back of the room. And the fire department actually closed the doors, so nobody else could get in. That was good. I felt good. I mean, I actually felt that I knew what I was talking about. I mean, it made me feel good.
You certainly looked like it. You certainly looked like you knew what you were talking about. And everyone was there. Again, this is a room full of jewelers, and we're all businessmen, and we all know what we're doing, and we're masters of our little universes, of course. And then somebody comes in, and you're just so shocked at how much you were missing. And so that's where it started.
So you went back home. You got a refrigerator.
Got the refrigerator first.
What else did you do? What else did you take away from that and implement in your business to change your business?
Well, it's really more of a philosophy, and it's part of what Al was saying earlier, that you invite people into your store the way you invite them into your home. You add an extra level of personal relationship that most people aren't doing. So immediately it puts you that much farther ahead of your competition.
Can I drill down on that? What do you mean that other people aren't doing it? They're more of a special relationship. How do you do that?
Well,
What can you tell
someone
them?
comes in and you're as nice as you can possibly be to them, and you make a sales presentation, you sell them something, you wrap it in a book. That's one experience. And I think, please jump in, but I think what he was saying then, or what I took from it then, was okay. That's half. The other half is it's your responsibility to create an experience that they won't forget, so that not only will they do it, but they'll remember you. They'll remember how different you were. I mean, we're all consumers. We all know that no matter where we go, rarely are you treated well.
And thus they become the advocate.
Right.
That is the keystone of what you do.
I think that there's a lot of opportunities for us to treat someone like your best friend. How often do you call your best friend? Every day? Every day? Every second day? Once a week? So what happens is that, I think that you have to understand that someone is coming into your home. I bought a company called Blackstar & Frost in 2006. It's America's first jeweler, founded on May 1st of 1810. And their concept, back in the 1800s, was to actually make someone feel like they were coming into your living room. Think about that for a second. Think about how can you make someone feel like they're coming into your home. And so a couch, a couple of seats, a nice coffee table where someone can sit and relax. Pacheco, the writer of Why People Buys, had a lot of things to say about that confrontation that happens in stores today. Somebody walks in the door, you don't give them a chance to readjust their sight. They're coming in from a bright light to a darker setting, or maybe they're just in the middle of a conversation and someone comes in and just says, "Can I help you?" I mean, the word "may I help you" is just, the word help should never be used. It's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Have you ever been to ABC Jewelers? If all you do is sell a piece of jewelry, if that's all you do, that's the only connection you have with the person you're serving, anyone can break that, right? There's a million ways to break that relationship. They'll try to sell, somebody will sell something cheaper, someone will provide a better service. But if you have 5 or 6 points of contact, you know their children's names, you know their children's birthdays, you know what their favorite hobbies are. For example, I have a friend that's been doing this for me for years. Every time there's an article on Cuba, or every time there's an article on yachts or on jewelry, I get something in the mail. He drops it off at my office and says, "I thought you would enjoy reading this." I mean, those are the little points. You see, there's a great book, Jim Collins' Good to Great. If you haven't read it, you should read it. And Jim Collins basically talks about the fact that he asked all these companies what made them great. And not one company can answer a single answer. Because there is not one thing that's going to make you great. It's a lot of little things. It's a lot of little things as to what does your store look like when somebody walks in. Does everybody have pride in the store? Is it clean, or is there dust on the shelves? Is there a fingerprint on a piece of jewelry? Do you display jewelry like you're selling groceries? One of the biggest mistakes I think that are made in our industry, you want to show everything in showcases. I am completely the opposite way. Less is more. I have showcases where I have one piece. Yes, it may be a $3 or $4 or $5 million piece, but it's one piece. And what's more important is when somebody comes in and looks at a piece in a showcase, and you say, "Let me show you our private collection." I still have my little box. This is my little box. I have 5 or 6 rings in my little box. So I bring my collection. I had a customer walk in the other day, 3.5-hour presentation. He looked at $15, $20 million worth of jewelry. None of that jewelry was in the showcase. None of it. All of it was in the vault. Think about the impact. See, it's return on impact. Return on impact. That's what you want to talk about. Let me show you something. And you go to a vault, and you go to your desk, and you show him that piece that just came out of the vault that only he has seen all day. Think about the psychology of that. Our conscious mind is about like the size of an ant. Our subconscious mind is like an elephant. Most people only pay attention to the conscious mind. Forget about it. You know, you only use half of your day. You're actually engaged, and you have a conscious mind. The other half of your day is actually your subconscious mind. You may not know it, but that's what happens. What do they call that? Driving psychosis or whatever. No, I mean, when you're driving somewhere and you're close to your office, you went up to your office and you say, "What am I doing at the store? I was supposed to go somewhere else." Highway psychosis or highway hypnosis. Highway hypnosis. There you go. Highway hypnosis.
So how many of you think you do a really good job with customer service or these touch points? Let me tell you something. Are you familiar? Well, of course you do. Because you have to answer to them, right? You're familiar with the KNOT survey? And you know that the KNOT survey is all focused on bridal. You know that they do it every 2 years. The last survey they did, they talked to 8,000 couples that had actually purchased an engagement ring in that 2-year period. 50% of the brides did not get a communication from the jeweler after the fact. 50%. Now I'll tell you, you can have a refrigerator, you can go to Costco, you can have this extreme level of service, but if you can't write a handwritten note 50% of the time to the people that just spent 10, 15, 20, whatever $1,000 in your store, we're not there. And I'm looking at Elizabeth, and I know you got this stuff.
Well, and another point, Terry, which is even more important, is that the average buyer, when they're surveyed, they say they'll spend $10,000 to $15,000, and yet the average in this country is around $3,500 to $4,500. So what's happening is someone is coming in, someone is being asked, "What is your budget?" They're saying $5,000 or $4,000, and they're buying a ring because the person is a clerk, not a salesperson. You know, I have deaf ears to budgets. I don't know what a budget is. You know, you can have someone that comes in and says, "I want to spend $5,000," and they end up spending $50,000. But you got to show them the $50,000 piece because he may not be able to do that. One of the things that we do is we have what we call aspirational pieces. Somebody walks into our store. My aspirational piece for many years was a 76 karat D-color flawless called the Archduke Joseph. Unfortunately or fortunately, I sold it last November for $21.5 million. When I paid $12.5 million cash for that stone, everybody said I was crazy.
I'm surprised. I didn't think you'd ever sell it.
I didn't think I ever sell it either. Actually, I didn't want to sell it.
He used to carry it around in his pocket if he was at a show, and he'd say, "Here, I want you to see something," and this millions of dollar diamond would fall in your hand.
It was fun. It was fun. You know, Harry Winston was the master. You know, he would go to parties, and he always said that he loved diamonds. He loved diamonds so much that he could not go to a party without a big diamond in his pocket. Well, I got news for you. He loved selling diamonds a lot more than he liked owning diamonds. And, you know, he sold the diamond every time. Maybe he'd go to Meriwether Post, he'd go to a party, and he'd have a stone. So, I met Harry when I was about 8 years old. So, my grandfather was a good friend of his.
So, Steve, tell us this. You found out that your customer service level was about half what it could be. In a period of time, you must have taken some very specific steps. Tell us about the steps you took to get your customer service level, that detail level, from where you were to where Al inspired you to get to.
Right. Well, I mean, it took a sea change. It took everyone who was in the store to get on board with this. Obviously, that's when I was on the floor all the time, and I had to change. I had to talk the talk and walk the walk. At that time, we had fewer people. It was a little bit easier, but everyone understood who we were. Everyone understood what was expected of them, what level of service we were going to be known for, and it had to be system-wide. We're still doing that same thing. It's a little more challenging with 22 people than it was with 4 or 5, but we still make sure that everybody understands what we expect of them. We have an interesting system for the notes after the sale. We hand out the paychecks right after you present copies of the notes that you wrote.
Oh, that's interesting. Elaborate.
And you don't write the thank you notes, then there's no paycheck. So it makes
Well,
it nice and easy.
there you go, that works.
The paychecks,
That could solve the thank you note issue.
Does anybody get a pass?
Usually not. Melissa can tell you.
That's very good. All right, now, two amazing stories, two great stories. The mentoring story means a lot to me because I've had that experience that Steve had with other people, and in some ways without. Not everybody is going to get to this stratospheric level that you exist at and at your level. But what, and I hate the word average jeweler, but what principles, can these principles apply to a mid-range jeweler, someone that's not going to sell a $35 million stone because that's not their diamond, because that's not their territory?
Well, that's why I came back so excited, because this was something, what Al was telling me to do is something that I could do. I couldn't compete with my larger competitors. I couldn't spend that much money on advertising. I didn't have a marketing department. I couldn't do many things. But as small as I was, a micro jewelry store, what I could do is implement everything that he said. So, you know, it's that personal level of service, and it doesn't cost anything.
So you believe, I would say, not to put words in your mouth, but the person,
I would say I would not.
the merchandise doesn't.
I disagree with you. That's what I would say. I mean, well, no, I disagree with you. I mean, I think that everybody in this room can be me and maybe even better. Because, I mean, there are no limitations. I really don't believe in any limitations. You know, there's people in this room. I mean, John Richardson is sitting in the back of the room, and he taught me to give away 10 cards a day. I mean, you know, Nadine Allen, who's been my public relations and advertising person for 26 years, did a great job. And you know what? Let me tell you how I base my company. I base my company based on Harry Winston. Harry Winston was a mentor of mine. I mean, I didn't have a lot of time with Harry, but when I spent time with Harry, he was really an amazing guy. And so, whenever we were doing any kind of advertising or PR or anything like that, and Nadine Allen did not like what I was doing, she would say to me, "Would Harry Winston do this?" And of course, I mean, she did work. It worked. But see, here's the thing, guys. I want everyone to understand that, first of all, the biggest challenge that we have in this business is that we're selling a product. The problem is nobody understands what that product is. There's a great, most of you are aware of TED.com, and any of you are aware of there's the TED Talks.
TED Talks.
There's a great, you know, for the longest time, one of the things I was taught 25 years ago, if you serve on a board, if you're serving on a board, you're serving the people of that organization. And your main question that you should always ask is a simple question: why? Whenever somebody presents something at a board, the first question you should ask is why. And there's a great guy, Simon Sinek, that wrote a book called Start With a Why. It's how leaders lead. If you haven't seen that DVD or that talk, you need to do it. And it's free, TED Talks, there's 1,100 speakers. But he says, look, everybody tells you what they do. When you get in an elevator, what do you tell people? I'm in the jewelry business, I'm in the diamond business, I'm a jeweler. Or do you say, I'm in the emotional business? You know, it's taken us 11 generations to discover the secret to a woman. It's a word, it's an acronym, it's an easy word. Even a man can remember it. It's called a cure. A man has to show a woman that he cares, that he understands her, that he respects her, and that he's emotionally involved. And when a man buys a piece of jewelry for a woman, you know that all four of those aspects are covered. That's the secret to a woman, right? Not bad. Better than say I'm the jeweler, you know. 6 things you should say to every woman every day. Yes, dear, you're right. I'm sorry. I'll never do it again. I think you're sexy. Let's go shopping. And if it happens to be a Terry store, that's much better. Right?
And then South, we say yes, ma'am.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, always yes, ma'am.
3 key words for a long and lasting relationship with a woman: give in early. Don't be silly. You're never going to
I
win.
want to save some time for some questions from the audience, but real quickly, a a lot of us in the jewelry business are being perceived to remain bigged up by the big brand names that we must have that control our business. That you all quickly tell us how much of branded goods do you utilize in your stores? How dependent is your store on big names or not? Steve?
We are not. We actually, at one time, tried to really partition our store off via brand names. It took us forever to do it. It cost a lot of money, didn't sell any jewelry. We made a conscious decision at one point. What we're going to do is brand ourselves. So if you walk into our store, everything that you see in the case is something that we painstakingly selected, that we love. We carry Simon G. We certainly tell people about some of our closest friends. But for us, it's more about us being the brand and people coming to us for that brand.
It's wonderful. Al?
I've been out of the brand business for 15 years. I threw out every watch line I had. I threw out every designer that I had. I think there's a real issue, and I think that's one of the major issues we have in this industry is that if somebody else is telling you what you can charge for something, you've got a problem. Especially when you can't make a profit. We're the only so-called luxury industry that prices things based on what it costs us to buy it. Now, our cost of doing business is 47%. So if something costs me 50 cents and I sell something for $1, I lose money. I can't make any money at the Keystone. And so, 60% of my profit comes from high-end color. Now, it doesn't matter, if you don't know color, you need to learn color, because color today, diamonds used to be the bread and butter in this business. Today, they're lost leaders. You can't sell a 1 carat pair of diamond earrings and make a profit, but you can sell, 100, 50-point stones in a necklace and make a profit. It's a real challenge. I think that the brands were a good thing at one time, but today, because of the information systems that we have, your customer can find any brand you're selling somewhere that somebody's willing to sell it to for less. How do you protect yourself from that? For the longest time, we were with Oscar Hyman, we were with Kirk Wayne, we were doing a lot of business, and they would actually do ads. They actually would do ads in Town and Country, or they would do ads in some of these bigger magazines, and they would put 5 jewelers' name on the bottom. And you know what I said? Thank you, but no thanks. You never saw Molina in any of those, because people had 800 numbers, and the customer would call 5. Whoever were out there, the customer would call 5 people, and what would happen? They got 5 different prices. What type of integrity is there in something you're selling when you have 5 different prices for the same product? The first thing we need to establish in our industry is trust. First thing you have to do in our industry is trust. That's your biggest hurdle. You need to identify their needs, you need to exceed those needs, and then you have to create urgency. Everything at my store is one of a kind.
There's your motives. Two of the most successful jewelers in the world do not embrace the big brand issue. So I know that's on your mind. I think that's an important comment. Wow, this is a great story, and I so much appreciate you guys making the trip. So we've got about 5 or 6 minutes, and I don't want to deny you all an opportunity to ask questions of these 2 sharp guys. So who's got a question? Yes, ma'am. 300 events. She wants to talk about the 300 events and what I would assume you call cause work.
Correct. Well, so I made a statement that we support 300 charities, and we do, and so we have events in the store. We use our store as a stage, and so the whole idea is, as a matter of fact, one of our local heroes here was Walter Payton, and I love saying this because it's such a great story. So Walter Payton was put on a transplant list for a liver. He had a rare liver disease. And the day that he was taken off that list, there was an uproar. All the press got involved, and there was a press conference. And they kept asking him, now that you've been given your death sentence, what do you have to say, Walter? And Walter never answered that question. He simply said this: all I know is that no one can have a great day without doing something for someone they cannot repay you. Okay? that is an act of random kindness. I support 300 charities today because when we arrived at the Wilson Hotel here in Chicago, we had no money, no food, no clothing, and a fellow Cuban, can't tell you what his name was, can't tell you what he did for a living, he took us to a grocery store, bought us 2 weeks worth of grocery stores and warm clothing. That act of random kindness took a selfish, self-centered, what's in it for me, little kid, and made who I am today. I mean, that's just part of who we are. You know, so you have to understand that I'm truly, I didn't start in the charity business to sell jewelry, number one. I did that because that was part of my inner need. But at the end of the day, I must say that I cannot go to an event where someone will not come over and say, you know, Al, I'm not in the market for jewelry, but if I ever am in the market for jewelry, I'm going to come and see you because of what you did for XYZ charity or because of what we do in this community. And I think that's very important. And I invite everybody can do that. If you can't give money, you can give time. If you can't give time, you know, there's always ways to help. Always ways to
Steve,
help.
are you deeply involved in this community in cause market?
Yes. One of the other things that I didn't touch on from Al's great seminar was community involvement. Once again, we're so busy every day just waiting for that customer to come in and trying to make that sale and trying to make the jewelry. But he said, are you involved in the community and how deeply are you involved in the community? So I'm actually I started out with the Chamber of Commerce and now I'm actually a city commissioner. So I decide
God bless you.
things that happen in our neighborhood and it takes a lot of time, but you know, but it's well worth it.
Another question from the audience? Yes, sir.
Well,
Great. You said great. You want to know about the comment great story.
great story. Listen, when you have an opportunity to make a story, create your store all the time. 3 days ago, I was in Newport Beach. We have a store there, a 5,800 square foot store called Black Star and Frost. And a gal had walked in, and I've been collecting Black Star and Frost jewelry. I have a mystery clock, you know, $1 million mystery clock, and another clock that were both shown in 1939 at the World's Fair here in the United States. So I'm creating this collection, and a gal walked in, and she had a service, a Black Star and Frost service, and then I had a coffee or a candy dish that I had purchased. So she asked my salesperson, you know, how much does Mr. Molina want for that? Now, first of all, I can't even tell you what I paid for it, so I wouldn't know what to charge. But I took a decision that the best way for me to serve Black Star and Frost was to gift it to her. So we gifted it to her. Sometimes, you know, just little things. I mean, just, you know, look, there's great stories out there about FedEx. You know, one great story with FedEx was that a wedding dress ended up at some sort of a waiting station, and this guy went to this station, rented a Cessna and flew over to the wedding, and that's one FedEx story. You know the FedEx story about Nordstrom's, right? Some guy comes in with tires, and now it could be true, it could not be true, but obviously Sears sold him the tires, but the guy walks into Nordstrom's and they give him a refund on the tires. They didn't sell the tires. So it's those little touches that you can do something with. I mean, you know, I'm not in the jewelry business. I am a lifestyle consultant. I have billionaires that call me when they're having a problem and they need a bodyguard. I have people that call me because one of their grandkids is sick and they can't figure out how to get the kid to heal. I mean, there's, you know, I talk to people about more things you can imagine. I'm a lawyer, a doctor, a bodyguard, you name it. So it's about having a very important relationship. You know, sometimes people's wives call me before they talk to their husbands. Not in anything other than just looking for counsel. We are lifestyle consultants, and the reason for that is that we basically are part of some of the most important and precious times in people's lives. I mean, we create memories, we create emotions. Isn't that what we do? I mean, we're not selling pots and pans, you know, and it's important that we can do that.
I got time for one more question. Is there one more question?
Cure, the word cure. Yes, care, understand, respect, and emotionally involved. Those are the four things that a man, that's the secret to a woman. None of you ladies would have a problem receiving a nice piece of jewelry for someone, even if, from your own store.
Well, thank you guys very much. We appreciate you sharing. I hope that you had as much fun as we did. Let's hear it for our two strong